In the culture war, there are no winners, just podcasters. Only a few are willing to risk their lives in the face of some of the dumbest ideas to have ever captured human civilization. Every week, we, Meghan Daum and Sarah Hayter, humbly accept this mission to bring you conversations that are equal parts stunning, brave, and, I don't know, brat adjacent. Welcome to A Special Place in Hell. We're not even going to talk about brat because I still don't understand what that means, but I just thought I'd throw it in for the algorithm.
Okay.
Have you been following this?
No.
No? Again?
No?
Brat? It's like, it is.
What do you mean? Like
it's an adjective.
Oh.
It's being used to describe Kamala Harris. I don't know what that was. It's brat girl summer. This is the vibe. This is
what does it mean? What
Gen Z defined
brat mean?
It's just it's kind of an aesthetic. It's a way of being where you're like, you kind of just you don't really, you give kind of very few to zero fucks, and you kind of party into the night. You're like a little hungover. You're just kicking loose for the summer.
Oh.
You're not all uptight and buttoned up. Maybe you're a little bit your mascara's running down your face or something like this.
And this is
and this comes from a musical artist named Charlie SCX or something.
Oh yeah.
And
I know
so
her.
she has this is her, that. Okay. So this,
okay.
And there is a particular color scheme and font to her album cover that has been co-opted by the brat movement. And this is what Kamala is.
That's sad.
This is good.
Oh, Charlie. That's sad. She shouldn't have done this. I don't know.
Okay. I'm definitely not brat, but you are, I think. You unconsciously, maybe.
Okay.
Anyway.
What do you think about this? I feel, that this surge of like Kamala fever, Kamalot, as what it was was it the New Yorker?
That was the cover of New York Magazine.
Oh my God, New York.
Covers line. I loved that cover because it just looked like something from the 80s New York Magazine. Yeah. It's a real headline, a real story, a real title. It's going to backfire. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it's because it's starting to feel very fake. And the thing about astroturfing is that you got to be subtle, and they're just hammering it home that we just love her. We're so happy with her. She's cool. She's kind of sexy now. She's aging so well. I don't know.
That's racist for starters.
Feels like
say
it.
that. Saying she's aging so well.
You're allowed. You're allowed to say
this is the kind of racism we all aspire to.
Yeah.
But wait, can you just explain what astroturfing means?
Astroturfing? You know what
I've heard of it, but I don't really know what it means.
I think it's like to inspire, like what appears to be a groundswell, like appears to be a movement coming up from the common folk, from the bottom, but it's actually devised and strategized, and like it's something that's coming from the top,
from central planning.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's made to seem as if it's a populist, like the people are the voice of the people is just crying out to be heard, but it's.
I see. It's been engineered. Okay.
Right.
I think this is terrible. I mean, this is what I said. I was dreading the Kamala stuff, and it's a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot of like, Fearless Girl. Remember Fearless Girl, that stupid piece of corporate commissioned, supposedly public art.
No, I don't.
This was a thing in Wall Street. This was maybe like, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago. This little statue of this little girl with a ponytail. It was they put it across from the bull statue on Wall Street, down there. So like it was like she was standing off. She was the the rise of woman powers, facing off with the capitalist patrarchy. Okay. And it was everyone went crazy about it and thought it was just the greatest thing, and it became a symbol of you go girl kind of circa 2015 or whenever it was, 16. maybe 17 feminism. But anyway, so there's some of that. But now we're getting like really like Kamala is being turned into a literal Gen Zer.
Yeah, I mean, it's like not her that's doing it. It's all these other people who are creating these memes, these videos, these, I mean, it's just so odd. It feels fake, honestly. It feels like deeply fake. But I think there is a truth to it in the sense that I think the Democrats felt very, they just felt very defeated, and they didn't know how they would ever get out of the impending loss of Biden, corpse Biden, Lich King Biden. And then he, when he dropped out, now they have a shot. And now I do think their soul is lighter. I think they're happier. There's a spring in their step. I think that's true. That part's true. And I hope that Kamala isn't underestimated either. You know what I mean? I think she can be good. And I think she can come across well against Trump. I didn't think she would come across well opposed to like, opposite JD Vance, because I think she would come across stupid. But with Trump, I think she could do this like, patronizing teacher kind of thing. And I think it would work. And I think it'll work in a way that it didn't with Hillary.
She can do the I'm speaking. Like, what is the thing she said? I'm still speaking or something.
Yeah, there's something about it and I think she can pull it off, even though it grates on a lot of people. I think she'll be able to pull it off better than Hillary could. And it's going to go, in her favor. So I think there's a lot of ways that she can be a kind of a formidable candidate, actually. So I have no idea what's about to happen in the next couple of months.
No, I just hope that she does not keep leaning into this memification. She just needs to be the adult. Let the kids do it. It's fine. But
she can't
from it and don't participate.
It's like what Ruth Bader Ginsburg did, which is just like the kids are doing what the kids are doing, and she's just still doing her,
Although she leaned into it, I don't know. I felt,
did she?
Yeah, I mean, there was a documentary, The Notorious RBG.
Oh,
is that the name of it?
Yeah,
I mean, all that stuff. I felt that she was so old and frail and kind of out of it at that point that she was being led around by handlers and opportunists who just kind of were parading her around like a little doll and manipulating her into positions. I mean, this is a cynical take, and I know a lot of people disagree with me about this and say, "Oh, she loved it, and you just." But I just
did she even know what was going on? Though?
I don't know. I mean, they say she did. I don't. I mean,
I have friends who are like old, like 70, like people in their 70s who I'm friends with. They don't really know what's going on when it comes to, especially online culture and how it evolves and the memification of people. I don't think they really get it. And that's sad. I didn't know that. But it's fun time to be a Democrat, I guess. Did you join the White Women for Kamala call?
I did not.
Why not?
I think I established in our last conversation that I'm not identifying as white right now. Just phase I'm going through.
I think that's racist. I think you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that.
Really? I mean, I don't know why. It's my choice, my identity, my choice.
Not this.
I don't know why you're policing my identity.
So are you going to join the white men? Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, I'm going to try. So can we just, it's, how many, we talked about this last time. So Shannon Watts, who is a noted, she's an anti-gun activist, very, very effective activist, very good at organizing. Clearly, she organized this. Were there 100,000 women on it? 200,000? Like
they said there were more.
Zoom.
Yeah, it broke Zoom. I mean, I who knows?
And it was white women for Harris. It was we had such estimable white women as Glennon Doyle, the whitest of all white women.
I don't know any of these women Shannon Watts I know because of our last episode where you told me who she was, but I don't know any of these women. Who are these women?
Glennon Doyle.
What do they do?
Who she is?
Who's she?
She's a like a wellness guru, sort of self-help influencer. We can do hard things. That's what she said. Like,
face looks familiar.
And she she's kind of like a eat, pray, love, scented candle, recovering. She's recovering from various things.
Okay.
She's and Connie Britton, who's a hero to many white women. So
who is she?
She's an actress. She was the coach's wife on Friday Night Lights. Tammy Taylor. I mean, brilliant show, brilliant performance, very likable person. Very, very Texan, big hair. So she was on the call. Various others. Maybe we should play a clip. I think I really took a lot of inspiration from this clip, because the woman who kicked off the meeting, she didn't do our thing. She didn't do the the cringe opening, but she had her own sort of version of that, and I think it might be useful to play it. So should we do that?
Okay.
All right. Here it is.
Ariel Fodor, affectionately known as Mrs. Frazzle, audience of over 1.5 million followers, is here to help gentle parent us through this election.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am so honored to speak today. I am like shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season. This is a really important time, and we all need to use our voices and influence for the greater good. No matter who you are all influencers in some way. So tonight, I'm going to share some do's and don'ts for getting involved in politics online and navigating the toxicity that comes with it. And spoiler alert, as much as the toxicity can come from the outside, it can come from us too. So first, don't isolate yourself. We can do our best work when we're in community together like we are tonight, because the toxic feels smaller when we support each other. But don't make it about yourself. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So do check your blind spots. You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not.
Do the learn.
Okay.
You're responsible for your algorithm. Also, like, I feel like I owe you an apology. I have been speaking over you as a white woman.
Yeah.
I occasionally have to interrupt you because your sentences don't really always have periods. You don't. Your sentences. Your
white privilege tells you
sometimes don't end.
No. That's your white privilege
choice. Actually. Yeah, I think that there's so much there. There's so much there. The toxicity is less if we are all toxic together. If we just get inside a box and think outside the box. I really need to sit with this for a while.
I like the way she introduced herself. She's like, hi. There's a kind of tone that she struck really beautifully. Like I couldn't have made, it's one of those things where you just, this is how you talk. This is how you turn it on. This is your performance. And she did a good job, I thought, she used some interesting buzzwords. I liked it. She was going to gentle parent us through the election. What does that mean?
Well, that's
like, is that a terminal? Is that a white woman?
I guess
thing
it's a good approach. Maybe it's maybe gentle parenting. It's been kind of taken over. It's the corporate HR approach mean, it's not attachment parenting, so that would be different.
Yeah, it's not.
I would rather attachment parent my way through my leadership roles. Yeah. I can't quite. So there were hundreds of thousands of women on this call, and they were excited about it. And it is, I don't know quite what to say, because everybody's making fun of it online, of course. In our algorithm, we're responsible for the algorithm that is mocking these women now.
Has someone confirmed it, that it was, because that's what they're saying, right? Their propaganda is like, it was this many people on Zoom,
Right,
but who's, I need somebody to confirm that. I need somebody from Zoom to tell me that that's what was happening.
You should ask
because I don't
Giuliani. Ask how many. I mean, they're pretty good at estimating crowds.
Yeah. I mean, just come on. Just someone needs to fact check this.
I think Zoom says how
sure
many
it's
people are
large.
on the call, so you can't really
you can
lie
hide
about that.
You can hide that. You can hide that from the attendees, right? I mean, maybe they didn't do that though. I don't know, but I just want somebody. Maybe there were bots. How do you know? I mean, this whole thing feels so AstroTurf to me that it's almost impossible for me to imagine that there isn't some, like, okay, we're going to pump these numbers. We're going to. Well, I did sign up for the white men for Kamala.
Yeah, I know. We're going to try to jump in on that. I need to. Yeah,
I should have signed up with like a male name. I didn't do that.
Well, what were you thinking?
I wonder if they're going to kick me out. Well, they said everyone's welcome.
Oh,
and they don't know what I'm identifying as. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they call it white men for Kamala, but
yeah,
it's all geared towards white men, but all are welcome or something. So I signed up, and I'm excited to join and see what's that all about. Some people say Pete Buttigieg might join.
Buttigieg. That's racist to mispronounce his name.
I think it's homophobic. It's
homophobic. Oh, he's going to be on there? Okay.
I don't know, but there are whispers. There's some there's some buzz about it. I think
God, Mayor Pete might show up. That's, yeah. Yeah. I basically wrote an entire book about white woman virtue signaling. I mean, this whole experience is a little weird for me, because this book that I was writing, I started writing this book in like the beginning of 2016. I was really obsessed with this stuff for years, and I was noticing it, and I like, what is going on here? And I hate this. And I started with this book, and it just became this complete nightmare project, because the online virtue signaling world just mushroomed and became about so much more than just women. And then the book had to expand. But, the book came out, and everybody like hated it and got mad at me and said I was a terrible person, and that like, oh, you're so online. Who cares? All this stuff that you're talking about. Why don't you go outside and talk about what's happening? It's like, well, I did go outside, and there's plenty of it happening outside too. And I feel like, and that book came out in 2019. So 5 years later, it's like, see, I told you, this has been going on, and it is insufferable and embarrassing and racist and sexist and infantilizing and all the rest.
No, I mean, it's so big now that you can't stop it. Like,
no, I tried to stop.
You can criticize if you want.
Nobody listened.
No one's going to listen. Right. No one's going to listen because all the white women are on board. And the insularity of it is like really special, like it's just really special. It's frightening. These people vote.
You know what I should have done in my book is, instead of making it about women, I should have made it about white women. I should have said, all this stuff is super annoying, and it's being done by white women.
Yeah.
I wasn't specific enough. I just said women.
You can take a contrarian, kind of like a Syra Rao approach.
All right.
What do you think about JD Vance's? Are you offended? Are you hurt?
To be called
like some.
I need some
me time.
Yeah, I might need some self-care. I might need to do some self-care because of the childless cat lady discourse. No, because I don't have a cat.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a childless Sasquatch lady, as people know. Well, we talked about this a little bit last time. Look, what can I say? I know what he's saying. We know what he means.
Mhm.
And if everyone is going to just pretend not to understand what he's saying, I guess they can. But it's just the level of interpretation, just the shallowness of like mainstream media interpretation is just wild to me. So there was a piece in the New York Times. Okay, this is from July 25th. Here's the headline. Kids, a growing number of Americans say no thanks. A new study breaks down the reasons more U.S. adults say they are unlikely to have children. And so the opening anecdote is somebody named Journey McKay. She is 25. It says, when she imagines having children, a series of scary scenarios pop into her mind. The, quote, horrors of childbirth, risks associated with pregnancy, a flighty potential partner, exorbitant childcare cost. Abortion care restrictions are also on her list of fears. So she decided, she's a nursing student in Orlando, she decided to eliminate the possibility of accidental pregnancy. So she tries to, she's speaking with doctors about sterilization, and they're saying, no, you're 25. We're not comfortable doing this for you. I mean, this is the oldest story in the world. We've heard many times women complaining that doctors refuse to give them tubal ligations, even in some cases if they already have a kid or two. I don't know. It's like, is it really that hard to avoid getting pregnant that you need to do that? This is the other thing I don't understand. There's lots of ways to
it's such a fear. It's a phobia based thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody who got it. And she got it when she was really young. She was in her 20s. And she was just super afraid of ever. It was a phobia around pregnancy specifically, like as a medical thing, more so even than having children. But being pregnant and going through labor was just something that she never wanted. And I think, I don't know, it feels as if there are a lot of fears around being a parent, partially because we had this moment where we were honest about the difficulties of parenthood. And I'm glad we're honest. I'm glad we're talking about it. I'm glad we, are prioritizing it. But I think that the indirect message has been that it's just such an impossible thing, and there is no upside, and you're going to lose yourself and your entire life, and you're never going to have fun again, and you're never going to sleep again. And so it is just simply not worth it, or is something that you should delay until you are quote unquote ready. But that time never seems to come because the responsibility of a child is so huge and the loss of freedom is so huge that, I think a lot of women just don't think about it until it is really too late for it to become a reality for them. And I think this is terrible. I think it's terrible because I think a lot of these women who are very, very, very afraid of pregnancy and of having children would actually be happy in that life. I think they are focusing on what is really, really hard about it, and they don't know and can't imagine what is so wonderful about it because it's really not something you can relate to. And I've said this before, which is that the idea of not getting enough sleep, the idea of not being able to leave your house, the idea of not having enough money, those are all things we can relate to. Anyone can relate.
Well, also, you don't have to have kids to have those problems.
Right. So you can relate to it. You can empathize. You can imagine yourself not having had enough sleep, right? And so that fear is very real. It's visceral. And it's something that you can feel in a way that you can't feel the specific relationship you're going to have with a child until you have a child, right? Like you can't, like parenthood is not something you can empathize with until you're a parent. So I think that there's some parts of this, like I explained it to my, siblings in this way, like until you go through puberty and you can feel romantic love for somebody, it's really hard to empathize with that feeling, until you've felt it, until you've gone through it and you've experienced a rush of romantic love. And then suddenly all these like songs make sense. And, it would just,
you become insufferable.
Right.
Yes,
or exactly. Your first crush, right? Like imagine never having had a crush and then somebody explaining to you a crush and you think you are insane. And I hope that never happens to me. until you go through it. And then you're like, wow, this is great. You know, I'm like floating, and this is wonderful. I mean, there's downsides to it too, of course, but I think parenthood is a lot like that. I think that the joys of it are not something I can explain in words that will hit home, because it's just something you have to experience. And it's really sad to me that a lot of young women are just closing out this possibility, and we're in this position where we can't. I mean, we don't have like nagging parents anymore, you know? Like, I think culturally we moved past that point where it's okay to do this. And I don't know. I think there's going to be some costs, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers are pretty amazing. So there's a Pew survey from 2023. So 47% of people who are younger than 50, who don't have children, said they were unlikely ever to have children. So that's up 10 percentage points since 2018. When asked why kids were not in their future, 57% said they simply did not want to have them. Yeah. Women were more likely to respond this way. Further reasons included desire to focus on other things like career or interests, concerns about the state of the world, worries about the costs involved in raising a child, concerns about the environment, including climate change, and not having found the right partner. I mean, I think that last one is pretty much the number one reason.
But they don't say that. They say that they just don't want to anymore.
I mean, do you think that if more people were aware of this population collapse and the economic ramifications of reduced fertility that you talk about, that would start to move the needle? Because I think people are just not aware at all.
I don't think it would. I don't think
really.
It would yeah, I don't think the population collapse would not, because I don't think that's why women are not interested in having children. You know, and I don't.
But I feel like they need a permission. I feel like they're looking for permission to have children. Like they want it to be something more than just I want a baby, because that's not.
They want to feel like I'm being
they're doing something.
Person.
Yeah, they're giving back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if it was framed that way, like you know, we need all hands on deck here, people.
Yeah. I think that could work. Maybe that could work. Oh, I didn't think about it that way. You're right that there is something weird going on socially. And I'm glad I missed that boat, you know, like I just skipped right over it, because it sounds like a very difficult place to be. And I wonder if it's just made worse by the fact that, you know, it's a problem that compounds on itself. Like the more there are young women who are delaying childbirth, like getting married and having a kid, the more that they don't want to, you know, more percentage of them don't want to have kids in the first place, are not pursuing it at all. The less they see children around them, the less they see the good things about, you know, being a parent, and the less they want that in their life. I think we need like a kind of a public service like campaign to make parenthood seem appealing to young women, because I just think they don't find it appealing. I think they think that it's just going to cost them their entire life, and you know, they're partially right. Yeah, but it's not a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing.
Well, I mean, what about the cost of childcare? I mean, so here's the first comment. We pay, I mean, the comments, there's thousands of comments, and they're actually a lot more interesting than the piece. So somebody says, we pay $31,000 per year for our one child to go to daycare. I had no maternity leave. I had to take disability because that's how America views having a baby, as a disability. My employer, a top academic medical center where I also delivered, offers no maternity leave. Let me repeat that. No maternity leave. Yeah. Like I just, there has to be a way of incentivizing people. I mean, what do you say to this?
So there is lots of literature around schemes to incentivize basically people having kids around the world. So European countries that have had problems with this for longer than us have tried things. So there is data about what works, what doesn't work. And broadly, from my understanding, is that nothing really works. Nothing really turns the ship around. Things might temporarily boost people having children for a short period of time, but it doesn't stick. And it's often deeply expensive. Like, it's just enormously expensive from a social perspective, like societal wide perspective. Because think about this: $31,000 a year for her one child to go to daycare. Let's say the society takes this on. That's $31,000 that society is taking on per child every year until they go to school. That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And can we afford that? You know, and I think that there's just no way around the fact that this childcare thing is very difficult to just hand out to the state. I don't think we're going to be able to do that easily. We're going to have then the working mom problem. I'm a working mom, you know, like I have childcare. I'm lucky enough that I'm able to pay for it, or at least temporarily. It is enormously expensive. It is cutting into, you know, my savings even. But I don't know what else. I mean, if a state was covering this, you know, and was allowing for all my, you know, for free daycare, and the daycare is, you know, the best daycare the state can possibly provide, it would still be daycare. You know, my kids would be away from me for 9 to 10 hours a day, every single day. I don't know how they're being, I can't monitor what's going on there. I have to just trust that they're doing a great job or even a good job. They're sick all the time, and who knows what's that's doing their development. It's not daycare is not an easy solution
good for them.
You know, I don't think it's an easy solution. I don't think it makes up for being
okay,
with your
but
child,
what are we?
right?
Okay, but seriously, what are we supposed to do? I mean, are women not supposed to work? I feel, you know, I don't want to spend too long here because we talk about this a lot, but you know, it's very funny because I had a friend call me up on Saturday or Friday, and you know, she said she's had kids late. She had kids in her late 30s, and she's about 50 now, and so they're school age, but there's a lot going on with them. She's also got a mother with dementia, so she's taking care of the mother. She's taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
She's trying to do, you know, a really complicated job.
Right.
She does have a husband, but it's not his mother with dementia. And she just says she's completely overwhelmed. And so she said, you know, I'm calling you because you're the one who's been talking and writing about not having kids for so long. And I feel like you're getting the last laugh. She said all this smugness around parents and this idea that you know, the people with kids are laughing and feeling sorry for people without kids. She says, I think there's a moment in your life, if you're especially if you're in a certain demographic, where that flips. She said, I'm jealous. I'm envious of the childless people. And
she's in the worst possible situation.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, because she doesn't have, if she had her kids late, then her own parents can't help. And that's the case with, you know, my husband a little bit. Like his parents can't help. In fact, they're dependents, you know, like they're dependents on him. And that's a totally different situation. So now you have two sets of dependents on you, and your career is at its most demanding. Of course she's going crazy, because that's not how things used to be structured. Like that's I think we have to think in terms of a woman's life, like an entire life from beginning to end. And how can we structure things in a way that will, you know, ease the burden so she doesn't end up in a situation where everything is hitting at its peak at the same time. You know, and I think that will mean that we do say to women that maybe you take off work for a few years, and then from a state perspective, we provide some kind of incentive for employers to hire moms. You know,
okay, but how that sounds like socialism to me. How are you supposed to get back into the workforce if you've dropped out? I mean, these
so that's
are basic...
what I mean. That we offer it at the
Okay, so
employer
you're
level.
forcing...
Like, so if I say no incentive, offer an incentive. So if I say that I'm an employer, and I'm just throwing this out as an example, but let's say I'm an employer, and the government says that you can have a certain kind of credit, you know, or you can have your payroll taxes will be, forgiven for 2 years, something like that, whatever. If you hire somebody who has been a stay-at-home mom for 3 years or more, um, I think that there are ways around this. Like, I don't think this is an impossible thing. I think part of the reason it's impossible is that we're trying to address it in this odd way. We're trying to replace moms with somebody else. And I don't think we can do that. I think we should just have to give kids their moms and allow moms to have their lives back when the kids are a little older. And society should organize itself in a way to ease that transition back in and welcome them back into the workforce when they're ready for it. That's how I would do it. If I could do anything, I would not.
Very tall order.
Is it? It's more tall than paying 30, like having daycare centers that
Well, how are you
run and
supposed,
having.
what kinds of programs are that? Like, what are these government interventions? How is this supposed to be
Payroll
implemented?
taxes. Payroll taxes is something that the government. So payroll taxes is what the government forces me to pay if I'm an employer to the government, even if I'm a nonprofit, right? So the government can simply say that a certain amount of it will be forgiven, maybe all of it for like 2 years or something, and it's a lot of money. It's actually a lot of money. So that's a way for the economy to be churning along, for employers not to be punished. So I think that's another problem with giving lots and lots of maternity leave, is that creates incentives down the road where employers don't want to hire the kind of women who are going to be having children soon.
Right.
You know what I mean? You become nervous about it immediately because you think, oh, they're going to take 3 months off, 6 months off, and then maybe they won't come back from that,
Yeah.
And anytime you put incentives like that on, you put the burden on the employer, on the shoulders of the employer, you're going to create a really perverse situation that will backfire on moms, like on women. It will backfire on them. So I think there are ways around it. Like, we can just be creative, but it might, the cost of it might be that we recognize that moms can't be replaced by the state. Childcare assistance is good, but it probably won't replace mom. She probably still take a hit on her work life. And we need to help her when she's done.
It would be good, but then we got to find a partner in your early 20s, which a lot of people think is impossible.
Right? Like,
well, that is the first step.
I think that if families didn't think that taking this time off, like for a young woman to take this time off, would completely ruin them financially forever, not just for like 3 or 4 years, but forever, they would they would approach the thing differently. And I think there are ways for the government to make this easier. But I don't think that the people who are interested in making things easier for women are going to be okay with my perspective, because I'm saying, let's make it easier for moms to be moms, to work part-time or not at all while they have young kids and while they're pregnant and breastfeeding and whatever. And then ease them back into the workforce. Let's make it easier on those young families who now have to rely on one income. Let's make it easier for them to get by. But that is an approach that, the working mom party is not going to be okay with, because it seems as if their approach to this is, how can we keep women at work as long as possible? Like, how can we keep them in that, in that position for as long as possible? And I think we just have to say that you're being led down a path where you're going to fail.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to be like, in many ways. Yeah. But okay. Do you think that if JD Vance hired you as an advisor, he would be receptive to this? Is this ultimately what he is saying? He's just articulating it in the manner of an internet troll rather than a serious policy person?
I listened to his Meghan Kelly interview, and he kept hitting home the same point that his wife is a working mom, and he knows the struggles of working women, and he wants to make it easier on families. And he said it over and over again, almost too much, like it was boring. I don't think he has a ton of charisma, actually. Like, I like him, but I from a politician perspective, he's like a little, he lacks something special, lacks a spark.
Well,
anyway,
he could be
VP works. I think VP is good. But I think he would be receptive, because I think he's okay with that sort of positioning, but I think that the Democrats are not. and that really breaks my heart, because I think that would be the best solution for, especially if you have a high needs child. You know, you have a kid that has colic. You're going to send that kid to daycare, and
Well,
you know, I was worried the whole time.
What about disability and autism? I mean, there are so many special needs kids. That's the other thing.
You worry the whole time.
Seeing this so much more often.
You don't know what's happening. You don't know how they're being treated, and that's a horrible thing for women to have to contemplate, especially if they have a child with unique needs. I don't know. What do you think? Like, what's the way out of this? What's the most promising way out of this hurdle?
I mean, I tend to agree with you. My thing always is that I think that people who don't want kids or don't have them have just the worst PR in the world. It's always framed as, oh, I would rather have expensive shoes than have kids. I've made this decision not to have kids because I want to go on exotic vacations, and I want to sleep late, and I want to be able to get on a plane at the drop of a hat. Like, that's not the reason anybody chose not to have kids. That's just ridiculous. Like, if that's their reason, I don't want to know that. They say that because the stigma against saying simply, this isn't for me. This is a really hard job and an important job that should only be done by people who really want to do that job. For some reason, that's been rendered taboo, and it's okay and cute and like, you go girl, to say, oh, well, I'd rather have, you know, Christian Louboutin stilettos. And go on vacations. It's always just been so baffling to me. And so my whole thing has always been like, you know, there's no greater form of respect to parents than to say, this is a really hard job and I am not going to do it because I'm not up for it. Like, I think that's actually honoring the importance of parenting.
Yeah, but I think that that's not popular. Like, people are not going to be okay. People want for childlessness or child-freeness, I guess, and parenthood to be on an equal social plane.
No, it's a different social plane. It's not less. I guess this all comes back to like, why does everybody have to be represented? Okay. Like, just, you know, there's a discourse you're talking about. Most people do want to have kids. Okay. Until recently, most people did have kids and most people did want them. That was the default. And it's fine to have a discussion around that. If you're really comfortable with your choices, you don't need to be represented in every discussion. Yeah. It's always the people who are unconsciously in doubt about their choice or their identity or feel bad about it. It's cope. I mean, there's no higher form of cope than getting offended that you're left out of the discussion. Right. It's always, it's an absolute cope tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we give the voice. In my own circles, like, I see a lot of, you know, youngish women, who have had kids like recently, and they're having conversations about what would have helped them. And I wish people would listen to those conversations, you know, because there are policies that I think we can put in place that would incentivize having children, would make the whole thing less like a pure sacrifice in which, you know, some pit that you're going to fall down and you're never going to get back up. You know, we have the GI Bill, right, for people who go into the army. And that was enormously effective in getting people to sign up because it was a way out for some people. Why can't we have something like that for young mothers? You know,
oh my gosh, maybe they should pay for college for people who become parents. Maybe you should have the kid. Actually, that's not a bad idea.
You're doing a service. You're doing a service, right?
They can have the kid, and then they can, get it, whatever, school age, and then they can go to college. But then how are they supposed to be in the workforce? I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That it has to be multifaceted, but I think that you can incentivize society. And we do this with like felons, right? Like we have various programs to like incentivize hiring a felon. Why can't you do that with a mom, like somebody who's intelligent, who is thoughtful, but look, she's been out of the game for 10 years. Yeah. She's okay with starting at the bottom, but you have to be giving her a chance. I feel like there's ways around it. I mean, maybe it's.
But again, I think that it's interesting that this comes down for so many people to just simply not wanting to do it. And maybe that's because of the the discourse? Is it sort of the disembodied nature of the way we live? So much of the parenting experience is being conveyed online. It's in Reddit forums. It's on, in social media. It's people performing. So it's people, being influencers. And so they're giving this cartoonish, idealized version of parenthood, which everybody can see is bogus. And then there's people complaining in a very performative, dramatic way. Like, I wonder if every day, like I walk my dog, into a park that's like filled with kids playing on a playground, and parents are standing around, and, it's not for me, but like, I wonder how many of these young women, young people who are saying they don't want kids, are they recoiling at the playground scene as much as they're recoiling at the Reddit thread? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't even know if they're recoiling much of the time. I think you were right that it's not as if this was even a deliberate choice for many of them. It's just, yes, there's the social context that's making you think that you're not going to be desirable if you become a mother, or you're going to lead a very undesirable life if you become a mother. But then on top of that, it's just, they haven't found partners. They just haven't.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened because we don't have those, third spaces or third places or whatever that they call. We don't have as many of them anymore where you can meet somebody who's suitable. Men are at the same time like just falling off of a cliff.
Well, they're not
in
up
terms
for
of
it.
skills. Yeah, right. They're not suitable partners, or we're not, we're not creating men the way that we used to. We're not churning them out the way we used to. And so it just didn't happen, I think, for a lot of women. They're sad about it. And I think that there is a whole, discourse that allows you to cope for that and say, actually, it was my choice. And maybe that wasn't the case. I imagine it really wasn't. Yeah. A generation ago, 2 generations ago, where you really had to fight for childlessness to be a legitimate choice. I think now it really is something that's been, it's just the way things are happening. Do
you think
they're not falling in love,
but
they're not meeting people?
Do you think that childlessness has been destigmatized really across all cultures? Because I do think that we're a little bit guilty of being in our super liberal, hyper educated bubble, and like, it's cool not to have kids. But if you go to rural America or something like that, people are having plenty of kids, and they're not necessarily marrying the fathers of those kids. And I don't know. There's a lot of kids running around. Like I said, there's a lot of kids, and
there are in
immigrant
lower income communities
and
lower income communities do. But it is the case, I think, that there has been a trend, and it's been going in one direction. And now we're seeing. I mean, this is what Pew gives us. These kinds of studies, they give us hard facts. They give us numbers to work with, and so we know that it's not just like a small pocket of the world in which people are foregoing having children. I think it's trickling down to normies, especially as it becomes harder for them as well. Just becoming harder for everybody for the same reasons. And I think there's nothing more to say really, except that I don't know if these influencers are necessarily helping, these sort of trad wife influencers. And I want to discuss the Ballerina Farm debacle.
Wait, you don't think that Ballerina Farm is a attainable goal?
I don't know.
I still think I could get there.
Maybe. You have nice cheekbones. You could do it.
Oh, is that all that it takes?
And a lot of money.
Oh, I don't have that.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so yes, a piece in the Times of London that is the talk of the internet, i.e. world, by reporter Meghan Agnew, about Ballerina Farm, which is the name of a homestead that is a major influence enterprise. Hannah Neeleman is the founder and face of this social media page and influencing empire called Ballerina Farm. Do you follow Ballerina Farm, or do you follow any of the trad influencers actually, or you just talk about them?
I just talk about them. I didn't even know they existed until this podcast.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Yeah, I had. They are really beautiful.
Well, I wonder if they were on the white woman call. They should have been.
I don't think they were. Not these women. They were too busy milking cows.
I know, they don't have
drinking the
to.
milk immediately after comes out of the udder.
Yeah. They don't okay. Yeah, well.
So she is Hannah?
Oh, Hannah. I don't know. Yeah.
Why did you say Hannah?
I did?
Did you hear? Yeah, you said Hannah.
I said Hannah?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, Hannah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Maybe it is Hannah. I don't know. Well, she is the queen of the tradwives, I guess. She just had her 8th child. And she lives in this gorgeous, like picturesque farm, where she does the tradwife thing. She wears these long dresses. She takes care of her children. They have no childcare. And she, makes them food all the time, and somebody's there to record it. So it's a whole industry.
She doesn't have childcare, but she does have videographers.
Yes, she has somebody
and merch managers. Yeah, and we should say yes. So she's 34. She lives with her husband.
34 and 8.
Already 8 kids. God,
8.
Sarah, you get.
Oh my God!
It.
I know, and this is making me feel so.
So
bad
she's
about myself.
her husband's 35. We should say that her husband is his father is the CEO and founder of several airlines, including JetBlue, and I think they are technically a billionaire family. Just as an aside, totally not really relevant to this discussion, but just FYI. Okay.
So she is has 9 million followers on Instagram, which is evidently a lot. I don't know anything about Instagram. 7.4 million on TikTok. I guess that's a lot. 1.5 million on YouTube. That is a lot. I know that's a lot. We're nowhere near that, Meghan.
How many Twitter followers does she have, though? Come on. That's what matters.
I bet she's not good. I don't think she can do Twitter. She couldn't survive Twitter. Okay, well, so let's see. So there was this piece on her on the Times. It was very controversial, even though there wasn't really anything about it that was all that bizarre, except for the obvious, except for what we already know about them. But I think people just didn't like the way that it was painted, like their family life was painted. Her husband seems to be interrupting her all the time. The interviewer she's trying to get Hannah to answer some questions.
There's 8 kids. Everyone's being interrupted all the time?
The kids are just always piping in or wanting something from mom. And the interviewer makes clear that this is, it seems as if this is what I didn't like about it, that the interviewer clearly thought of the kids as a nuisance or like treats them like a nuisance throughout the piece.
Right. Well, yeah, we should say that the framing of the piece was that Hannah had her dreams of being a professional dancer dashed by her husband,
Ballerina, specifically.
Right. When she met him, she was like very young, and he wanted, he had certain things he wanted to. He kind of swept her off her feet and swept her away, and suddenly it was his way or the highway, and he had always wanted to homestead and have a farm and all of this. And we should say they're Mormon, so they're Mormon, and this is a very big thing. The tradwife thing seems to be very big among Mormons. Mormons are very good at monetizing their tradwife wiffery. But so the framing is that she had always wanted to be a ballerina. She had studied at Juilliard and as a teenager, and apparently had some talent in that area, and that he had sort of taken that away from her, and that she would love to have like a ballet studio on the farm, which they have plenty of room for, but he's not allowed this or is discouraged.
And it turned into a schoolhouse for the children.
Right. I'm sure there's plenty of outbuildings. Studio. I'm sure they could rig up another ballet studio fairly easily, but yeah. So the reporter went in. I think she was with them for one day, and she really emphasized things like, him interrupting her. And Hannah at one point talks about how all she had wanted for her birthday was to go on a trip to Greece, I believe. But he had given her an egg apron instead. And so, yeah, the idea was that like, oh, we think that this woman is is, an empire builder, and we think that she is like the boss of her enterprise, and we think that she's a mogul, but in fact she's completely under the thumb of this guy, and possibly even kind of a victim of some kind of domestic abuse. So when you're going to go in and do a story like that, you do have to have some kind of angle, and that is an angle that's going to get you a lot of attention and clicks and applause, and it did.
Yeah. A lot of people were upset about what seemed like her to be her, her true life. This is behind the scenes of these like beautiful images that you see on Instagram. What's actually going on with this woman, and it's actually not enviable at all. She is a servant. And,
or she has to get out of she there was some moments she said she sometimes is so exhausted that she can't get out of bed for a week.
Yeah. And that was an odd detail to put in. I don't know how to feel about it. On the one hand, wow, that's a lot of exhaustion that you can't get out of bed for a week. Two, how often does that happen? And the family just is okay otherwise? What are they doing? Who's looking after the kids while mom's in, bed rest for a week? I don't quite understand how they make that work. I just think that pieces like this, it's so easy to create the reality that you want to see, and this woman, she doesn't seem to like the husband at all. And that she makes that clear, that he's interrupting a lot. He's just sort of hanging around over her shoulder, sort of directing the interview, answering for her, and even taking her out for a spin to show her parts of the farm, and she couldn't care less about it. She wants to talk to the wife. So she doesn't like him. That comes off very clear. Given what I know about how easy it is to paint whatever picture you want, if you are an interviewer, I don't really take this as meaningful. Not that it couldn't be real. It could all be real, exactly how she painted it. Or it isn't real at all. You know what I mean? And I think we just don't know. We have no, this is as real as the Instagram, like fake trad life pictures, the TikToks that Hannah creates. This is as real as those, which is to say not real, and I don't think you just treat it that way. And what's interesting is that she posts another piece, the same writer, I guess the interviewer, Meghan.
She did a follow-up.
Yeah. My day with the trad life, with Trad Wife Queen, and what it taught me.
Yes.
And it's interesting because she sort of just, it's almost as if she rewrote the piece, or she includes aspects of things that she saw during that day that she for some reason, didn't include in the original piece. Like it starts off, this more recent piece starts off with how beautiful, like everything seems to be. I think it's very interesting as she paints it in a very different way. It's much more nuanced.
Yeah, she's walking it back a little bit here.
Yeah, it's and then she paints the family in a different way too. Hannah comes across more empowered in this one, and the husband is kind of a little bit more understandable as a human being, and the children are described as like, I don't know, cute or good looking or something at some point. So
all the children are good looking. Yes,
of course they are. That this woman could not possibly give birth to an ugly child. And if she does, maybe they just bury it, maybe.
Or it's a child that that will not eat organic food, or won't drink raw milk. So that's just, you're out of luck. Yeah. This is the thing. I mean, and again, this is what just frustrates me all the time. There's so much fascinating stuff out there, and like so many ways to dig your teeth into all these things that are happening in like a really surprising and honest and thought-provoking way. And just like nobody's stepping up to the plate. No one online, no one in journalism. I mean, maybe they're trying and they can't get the assignment, or they can't get the space. I mean, that's the other thing, is like, this was in the Times of London, so I'm assuming it was in the print version, which means she probably had a word count restriction.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
maybe
and you
she
just
couldn't
won't get the
everything in.
clicks, honestly. Like, I think that's what everyone is competing for, and there is no place for something that's a little bit more complicated and, filled with the kind of contradictions that actually exist in the lives of this incredibly rich
Yeah.
farmer trad world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is such a fantasy. It's funny. So I wrote a novel. I can't believe how long it's been. It came out like 20 years ago. And it occurred to me the other day that it is all about the trad fantasy. I mean, it's about a woman who moves from a journalist. It's like a cheesy television journalist who moves from New York to this fictional town of Prairie City, PC for short. And, in order to sort of like do this series of reports about how she simplified her life and cleansed her soul because she's like living on a farm and she's hanging her laundry up on the clothesline and this sort of thing. And she's really like getting back to the land and understanding herself. And in fact, the town that she goes to is like filled with people on meth and, having like a million kids by different, parents and like so much more chaotic and really just, it's salt of the earth in a sort of unwholesome way than her peers in the big city. And there was no concept of the influencer back then, but that was absolutely what the story was about. Like she was reporting back to the audience in New York about
why don't you write this?
Idyllic life. I mean, really, it's also making fun of this very woke town in the middle of this kind of college town in the middle of the prairie.
You need to update that.
Look, it doesn't need to be. Look, let me tell you something. There is a fictionalized Maya Angelou character in the novel named Ida Bell Sugar. And the women in the book club are reading Ida Bell Sugar's novel, Clip My Wings and I'll Grow a New Pair. And there is I have come up with the prose of Ida Bell Sugar, and it's in dialect. And if anybody read this, I would be we should cut this out because I will be wiped off the face of the earth. Not even canceled, like literally.
That sounds amazing.
Rubbed out with an eraser. It is. It's a very funny book. It's a very funny book. It's a very funny book.
Okay, you should release it.
It is. It's released.
On Substack. Can you do that? Or no, you're not allowed to do that.
Go freaking buy it. It's on Amazon. Go release it. And it's had a long life in Hollywood, was optioned several times and never made into a movie, etc. But yeah, I mean, this stuff has been around forever, and and there were so many things that I thought about in the process of writing that novel. And maybe it could only have been done in fiction, because these are like real subtle, strange things about human nature and identity and our ideas about ourselves. And it's just so sad to see, like, there's so much rich material out there in the real world now, but nobody seems to be taking it on. We're just writing ham-fisted, clickbaity articles designed to outrage people.
I mean, I just wish the second article that she wrote was the actual article. You know what I mean? Like,
well, she could have combined them. How about combining them? That's what we used to do.
It's more interesting. It paints a more complicated picture about motherhood. And so the writer is herself not a mother. And she notes that part of the blowback that she got after writing the article was, how dare she, as somebody who is, I guess, a childless cat lady, may or may not have cats. How dare she walk into this life, spend a day, and think that she knows something about it and is able to cast like judgment on it. And I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. It did rub me slightly the wrong way. On the other hand, you're right that this writer probably couldn't. This is what she was sort of assigned to do. She had to do it, and it's probably succeeded in getting the Times a lot of clicks. And now more people are reading the second one, right? Because they're looking for the controversy. Like they're looking for the one that was controversial. They're landing on this one. That doesn't seem to be a terrible thing. I don't know why anybody would let a journalist into their home.
Well, I was just going to say that's the first rule of being interviewed. Never let them into your home. But like her whole thing is her home. So
no, but why are they even doing this? They don't need this, right?
Right.
Like they don't need they're rich and they're famous already. Why would you then allow like a journalist to come in? It's like, Kim Kardashian doesn't seem to do too many interviews, like like very, very, like somebody comes into my life kind of thing.
Well, they also, when celebrities like that have journalists come in, there's a set of agreements. Like, you're only going to be here for this amount of time. I mean, they probably had agreements here. They probably said you can come for one day. She was only there for one day, and I'm sure that's because that's all they would allow. Any journalist wants to stay as long as possible and get as much access as possible. It's not like she had to fly home to her cat to feed her cat. I'm sure she would have stayed there as long as she could have. But I don't know. Yeah, they'll say like you can. They usually say if you're doing a celebrity profile, it's like you get one sit down, you get one, scene in action where the person is doing something and you're following them around and you can talk about what they're doing. And then you've got like, other secondary sources, people you can interview, whatever. Who knows? Journalism is a wild card these days.
I just think the phenomenon of this woman is incredible. And I looked up what was in the first article, the mean article. She starts off with describing the fact that Neeleman, Hannah, participates in a beauty pageant.
Yeah, she's a pageant girl.
2 weeks after giving birth.
In a bikini? Is she in a bikini? She's in a gown.
A one piece.
Okay. Yeah.
A one piece, but a bathing suit. Something I could not look good in now. Right?
Oh, don't say that.
Yeah, I mean, not like this. This woman's in shape.
Well, she has a very particular body type. I mean, she's just very, very tall, willowy. This is not a normal kind of physiognomy, as the red pill guys would say.
Well, so it prompted me to just look this up because I wanted to hear more about this woman and, understand what's going on with her beauty pageant lifestyle. And there was an article in the New York Times, evidently February 1st of this year, that covers her as she is preparing for the pageant and then actually goes into the pageant. And it is so bizarre. The whole thing is bizarre. I don't even know what to make of it. I don't know how to feel about it. She talks about how she's still bleeding a little bit, but not that much. I mean, like after birth, you have to wear these diapers because you're bleeding so much. I actually bought like adult diapers.
Okay, Sarah, please.
I didn't like what the hospital gave me.
This is a family program.
Okay, well,
please
look,
stop.
it's a beautiful thing. Okay,
it's really, I'm throwing up in my mouth. Please move on.
So, I mean, the article starts off with her saying that she's still bleeding. And, she's just so excited to be in this pageant. This pageant is a Mrs. America.
Yeah.
So it's not, Mrs. World. She's already Mrs.
Mrs.
America.
World. Is she representing the U.S. or?
There are multiple pageants. It's very confusing. There's like multiple. There's a Miss America and then there's a Mrs. America and there's a Mrs. American.
Yeah. Is there a Ms. America?
I think Ms. America is just a regular pageant.
No, that's Miss America. Is there MS America?
Ooh. Well, no, because that's
called life, baby. Okay. What I can't understand is the mindset of the kind of person who puts herself through this, regardless of anything else. I mean, I felt very sympathetic to her when I read that initial article because it seemed like it was in kind of approaching them uncharitably. But then I read this piece and I think I couldn't feel more alienated from anyone than somebody who, having given birth many, many, many times and knowing exactly what that entails, decides that 2 weeks after my due date is a great time to wear some heels and walk around on a stage in a bathing suit. She's got a ballerina mentality. I mean, she's got it. This is a self-punishing kind of extreme, physical challenge. If you watch like Black Swan, this is like a Darren Aronofsky movie, really, because he's so into like extreme physical self-punishment and goal setting and just extreme experiences of physicality. So no, I think I don't know. This is completely my armchair
I think you're completely right.
But it feels like a self-deprivation thing. It feels kind of anorexic. It feels like a challenge. It's like something she can control. I mean, this is anorexia as a way of controlling, right? So it's like she can't control her life, but she can control her body to this extent. And it's a particular, maybe, she does have a body type that is going to, for the moment anyway, like recover differently than the average body type. And so she's going to like use that for all she can. And also put a lot of effort into it. I'm sure. I'm not suggesting that she doesn't have to try.
You have to put a lot of effort. I mean, but it's just, it's as you said, it's punishing. But it's even in the best case scenario, you have everything going for you. Why? Right? Why?
Because she gets something out of it. It's like, it's a one-upmanship. It's a competition.
Yeah, it is.
She wants
to look at me. It's about, so this is, reading this article made me feel differently about Hannah Neeleman, in the sense that I do feel like this is something she wants. She wants this sort of punishing, grueling kind of lifestyle, this extreme sacrifice kind of a thing, and monetizing it and putting it on a stage, because she wants everyone to know, look at me, I'm this kind of woman who has 8 kids and,
of course,
would never let another woman, raise my children, even though I have the means to do it. And look at my wonderful stove that costs $1 bajillion.
It's of course.
Yes, she has to be punishing, and yes, she has to do it in a very public way. But that's what this pageant is, right? Like, that's 2 weeks after giving birth. I have to be there. I have to be all dolled up and participate in this thing while I'm trying to nurse my newborn.
I mean, it's an obsessive. I mean, it feels kind of OCD, frankly.
Yeah, I think calling it anorexic, I think it's right. Like, there's something about this that's very.
I mean, but it is like some women just seem to have a different kind of way of carrying themselves very shortly after pregnancy. I mean, remember with Sarah Palin? She wasn't in pageants, obviously, but it was very unusual that she had that baby and was like immediately, like out on the campaign trail, like in a suit, looking great, a lot of vitality, and she had all these other kids too. And it was this sort of thing, like, God, all you, soft, self-indulgent urban and suburban women, like, this is how real women do it. This is the pioneer spirit. Like, we can, like, have the kid in the field and then walk out and put our high heels on and
I think it's grotesque.
Go on the campaign trail. But this was very inspiring to a lot of people. And it was a way of also saying, it was a great way of saying, hey, look at you stupid, coddled, liberal white women with your extended maternity leaves and your self-care and all this, like, suck it up. And that's a very appealing message to people. To some people.
I think it's just shock value. And I think that's what, and it's the one-upsman thing. It's, it's I'm better than you and look at how much better than you I am. But there's something about it that is.
But don't you know people who are like, oh, I don't know why these people are making such a big deal. I had my kid and, like, in a camper and then took them on a road trip and you guys are upset. Like, it's just a very common kind of flex.
Yeah, and I think it's, some people really genuinely can. Like, it may just be their genuine experience that it was easy. And recovery was easy, and it was something they could just look back on and think that was a piece of cake, whatever. I know women who enjoyed their pregnancies, who didn't have a tough time at labor. My labor wasn't particularly bad either. Not that I would brag about it, but I get that everyone has a different experience. But I think that there's something about specifically what Neeleman does here that isn't just, that goes beyond, like, oh, it was no big deal. Like, we went, on a world tour. Like, we went to Europe. We took our vacation in Europe, a month after I gave birth. There's that. That's crazy. And then there's what she did. That's on another level. And I cannot, my brain just breaks too. Like, I don't even know what kind of
extreme sport.
Yeah, right. That's what it is. It's extreme and it feels dangerous. That's the other thing. There's a true danger there that, I remember I was reading some statistic about maternal deaths, and like a third of them or something occur after labor, at some point, not even immediate, like an hour after or a day after, but like within the next like 2-3 months, right? It's kind of can be a dangerous time for women. And I don't know, I felt so deeply vulnerable when I had my kid and had a newborn in my arms. I wanted to be coddled, frankly. I mean, I wanted somebody to help me. I wanted somebody to hold my hand as I walked down the stairs.
I wonder, I mean, again, I'm just thinking out loud here. So she started really young. How old was she when she had the first kid? Like 23 or right. So I mean, I wonder if you start like really young, it doesn't occur to you to be afraid, or like there's a certain like, youthful naivete or denial that like allows you to kind of have be sort of blithely going through it, and you're not obsessing. And I don't know, maybe you start early, you don't realize the danger of it. It just gets ingrained in you, and you keep doing it. Like, the older, then an older mom is by definition going to have all kinds of anxieties and overthink things.
Right. But even then, like, isn't it the case that you would want to spend this time with your child that you've just had? Like, right? Like, I mean, it's
well, how long does it take to be in a pageant? It's like couple hours.
So at least the 2 weeks she had to do nothing but prepare for it, right? Because she has just given birth. So presumably her body is in terrible shape. She has to eat in a specific way. She has to, I don't even know what you do, frankly. I don't know what you do to prepare for it. But she has to focus on do nothing but, like, even if you have not just given birth 2 weeks before a pageant, your whole life is about the pageant.
Well, I don't know. I've never been in a pageant, so
we should go to a pageant.
I don't know why there's not a pageant for like podcasters. So this should be
oh my God.
I think
it could be fun.
I think
what would you do? Well, your talent could be tap dancing.
Yeah, tap dancing. Yeah. Or oboe playing.
Or oboe playing. But can you still do that? Can you still do
Well, I have an oboe. I don't have tap shoes. I'd have to get some. All right. Well, our last topic is another article in the New York Times that has to do with a friendship between JD Vance and his Yale Law School classmate, who is named Sophia Nelson, who is transgender. I guess at the time she was identifying as was identifying as a lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of these pieces that, basically they've dug through, like, actually, yeah, it's not just about this relationship, but it's largely about that. So they've dug through some old emails of his corresponding with various friends of his, and are trying to make the case that he's a flip-flopper and he's hypocritical and we don't know who he is and all this kind of stuff. And that his now transgender friend is just so disappointed in him that the friendship is severed. And I have to say, it had the opposite effect.
Yep. It did. I was disgusted by the fact that this piece was published, honestly. Like, do we not have any kind of decorum anymore about what is considered private? I think this woman or man or whatever this person,
individual, yeah,
JD Vance's former friend, is not a very good friend and might not be a very good person. I don't understand why somebody would publish something like this and something so private in order to humiliate and hurt their friend. I guess you just have to feel that their politics are that horrible that maybe she's throwing herself in sacrificing her own good name for the good of the country or something, but at least have enough like understanding of what it looks like from the outside, which is that he doesn't come across that badly.
Yeah. So the emails add to an existing body of evidence showing how Mr. Vance pivoted from strong opponent of former President Donald Trump to his running mate. They also provide an insight into a cultural willingness by Mr. Vance to accept his classmate, Sophia Nelson, who is transgender. Nelson, now a public defender in Detroit. Notice they don't say, the time style is to call people Mr. and Ms., but I guess this is what they just say Nelson. It's good workaround. Okay. Nelson, now a public defender in Detroit, said the two were once close friends, but had a falling out in 2021 when Mr. Vance said publicly that he supported an Arkansas ban on gender affirming care for minors. Now, Nelson, who opposes the Trump-Vance ticket, hopes the emails will inform the opinion of voters about Mr. Vance. Yeah, as if they don't already suspect that he is against gender affirming care for minors. Okay, so basically, Sophia Nelson delivered 90 emails to the New York Times or to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in one of the emails from 2014, It had to do with the police. In October 2014, in the wake of Michael Brown killing, Sophia Nelson raised the idea of requiring that police officers wear body cameras. Mr. Vance responded with sympathy for those upset by the police violence. He says, I hate this is part of a longer statement. He says, I hate the police. Given the number of negative experiences I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a Black guy goes through. Okay, there's another one. So we're supposed to, because he says that and now he's with Trump, we're supposed to think he's horrible. Here's another one where he criticized Trump. He says, I'm obviously outraged at Trump's rhetoric, and I worry most of all about how welcome Muslim citizens feel in their own country. But I also think that people have always believed crazy shit. I remember a poll from a few years ago suggesting that near majority of Democratic voters blamed, quote, the Jews for the financial crisis. And there have always been demagogues willing to exploit the people who believe this crazy shit. Okay. I'm liking him more and more. Okay. Here's from 2016. So in his book, Hillbilly Elegy, JD Vance wrote about Sophia Nelson. Okay. And so this is, before the book was published, or actually maybe shortly after, he sent Sophia Nelson a copy and talked about how he had referred to her/them, and worried that, so he calls her, he says that he refers to her as a, as progressive. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. She says, so he says to in this letter to her, or email to her, hey, Sophs, here's an excerpt from my book. I send this to you not just to brag, but because I'm sure if you read it, you'll notice a reference to an extremely progressive lesbian. I recognize now that this may not accurately reflect how you think of yourself, and for that, I'm really sorry, he wrote. I hope you're not offended, but if you are, I'm sorry. Love you, JD.
Okay. And what was Sophia's response?
If you had written gender queer radical pragmatist, nobody would know what you mean. So I guess she forgave him.
And then she asked for an autographed copy and signed off with Love, Sophia. So this is a really nice friendship they have. And this is 2016. So we're in normal times.
Yeah.
Okay, so there were a few more examples where he is making very reasonable, nuanced points, frankly sounding like somebody I would like to have a conversation with. And it sounds like Sophia is on board for this kind of exchange. And then last couple of weeks, Sophia, who is a public defender in Detroit and is now has actually transitioned at some point along the way. I'm not sure when. I mean,
Vance knew, and it was happening, and they mentioned that they previously opened up about a time shortly after they had undergone top surgery in which Vance brought them, this is their pronouns, not mine, home-baked treats as a recovery gift. Wow. So, I mean, what a terrible guy. I guess there's the way to the way that they're hoping you'll see this is he's sold out. Look at what he was, and he's sold out. But when I read this, I think he seems like a thoughtful person who doesn't seem like an asshole. You know, he doesn't seem like a bad guy. And I'm curious about why he's different now.
Well, and what is he doing? Is he a mole? Like, is he like smuggling all this kind of decency and heterodoxy into the administration? Is that his agenda?
I guess they're hoping that people will just assume that he has lost it. Like, he used to be this wonderful person, and then he completely lost the plot. But they're not explaining why or how. I mean, we're just... One day he wanted power so badly he completely flipped. Is that what it is? That's the story. It seems like a bad story, and I think if you want to believe it, And I think a lot of people do want to believe this about JD Vance. They like the flip flopper thing, which I don't get. I don't get why this is a problem. You know, people change their minds. What I made a whole career out of changing my mind of, you know, like leaving religion and then talking about it.
But you've talked about it. You've talked about why it would be nice.
He does too, I think.
Yeah,
you know? I mean, it's not as if he's published a book saying, you know, why I left the left or whatever, but he has made it clear that his views have shifted. And
he needs to go on.
If you followed him online, you could see them shifting.
Yeah,
in real time.
He needs to go on Dave Rubin and explain himself. Well, but I mean, I guess he can't really get up there and say, I mean, he's Donald Trump's running mate, so he can't be like, well, I disagree with him in this way. Like, I'm here to bring a different level of discourse onto this ticket. Like, he's not going to say that. Like, I'm here to spite this guy. Like, I'm here to protect you from this guy. I mean, the most charitable interpretation is like, okay, great. JD Vance is a guardrail, and JD Vance is like, is a kind of maybe very necessary and effective and ironically like best case scenario kind of buffer between Donald Trump and the rest of the world, or what actually is going to be done.
What so many people are doing, which is holding his nose and doing what he thinks needs to be done because he's just convinced that the left is worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it seems obvious to me that that's what's happened, partially because, you know, I think that is a story I've seen play out over and over again. I guess I don't know if I would call myself among these people because I'm not political anymore and I've sort of given up on activism entirely. But I spent 10 years in progressive activism trying to talk to liberals. Like, the whole time, like, that was my audience, trying to talk to liberals, trying to get them to understand a hot button topic from my perspective, and hoping that I would insert some sanity and nuance and change their minds, right? And I found myself just banging my head against a wall for 10 years. Like, nothing changed, nothing, you know? And maybe it is just maybe I'm just like a deeply ineffective activist, except I saw everybody else try other ways too. You know, I saw people who were far more to the left than me and very, you know, visibly, you know, just every time they got onto a platform being like, look, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, and I think all borders should be open, but we need to be thinking about Islam in a, you know, in a sane way. I mean, they're trying everything to be heard, and then they were not heard. Nobody gets heard, right? Like, the lesson I learned was that there is no right way to do it, because the message is not one that anybody wants to receive, and so they're just not going to receive it. And what was I going to do? Well, if I had stayed in activism, would I have bashed my head against this wall for another 10 years and just wasted my life this way? Because it's so important that I be a part of this movement. It's so important that I be with the right people, the good people, and yucky Trump and yucky right-wingers. And, you know, I mean, at some point you think about the calculus and you think, how can I actually have an effect on the world? How can I actually change the world for the better? And if the left is just not going to listen, they are never going to allow you a seat at the table, then you go to the other guys and you think, well, if they're not listening, maybe these other people will listen, and maybe I have hopes of pulling them into a better direction. And I don't see what's so radically awful about thinking this. I don't.
Well,
see
it's also,
so...
but it could be naive. That's the problem.
Of course, it's naive.
Why are they going to be any better? Like, honestly,
all activism is naive, I think. Yes, to some degree. And all politicians, you have to have this kind of dual, like, on the one hand, cynicism, enough cynicism that you can exploit people to get your message out. And on the other hand, this kind of a bizarre, childish, naive approach to, you know, what we're capable of.
Idealism.
Right. Yeah. And it's a weird kind of person that goes into activism and that goes into politics. And I don't know what people expect. You know, if you're just not going to listen, if you're not going to be the kind of party that is open to new ideas, that is open to people who disagree on one issue, right? I mean, I think about Elon Musk and how this guy should be the poster child of the left in every way, except for a few like cultural war issues where he's not fully on board with where the left wants to be. Like, this guy has done more for climate change than any one single human on planet Earth, right? And if you care so much about climate change, why aren't you embracing him? You know, I mean, I
He's
see that
disappointed.
now.
Like he's the J.K. Rowling of
now
climate
he's
change.
totally now he's kind of. I mean, he's left the reservation, but there was a period in which he just had one or two kind of shitlordy views, and the rest, everything else he was doing was spectacularly progressive. You know, he was giving tons of money to the ACLU and all these progressive organizations, and he was forwarding this climate change agenda in a really positive way and creating a real future for people who think, you know, that this is something that needs to be addressed, and we can even use capitalism to get our way. Why isn't he a hero? You know, I think he disagreed with one or two things, and that was enough to make him super evil. And then they pushed him out and then smeared him all the time, and now he's crazy.
Yeah.
Happens.
No,
you know?
he behaves like a wounded animal. A troll is a wounded animal.
Exactly. That is how he's behaving, and I'm not surprised that's how he's behaving because he got treated terribly.
Yeah.
And what do you expect? This is what people will do. They will leave. They will do what JD Vance did. They will be like you, a good little lib, praising Obama, saying Trump is, you know, Hitler probably, and then they will walk away. And you're going to lose good people, and that's just going to happen over and over again. And is this what you want? I guess so. You know, I mean, I guess that's what they want.
Yeah, but I think they're going to quickly get disenchanted with the other side too. I mean, just because they know they hate the left,
just because the other side is also bad, doesn't mean that they're not better.
I think,
right? Like,
I don't know that they're better. This is why we need to get rid of parties. So yeah. All right. Well, do we have anything else? Thanks everybody for the live stream. We got some donations on the live stream, and I see that we have some on the YouTube channel. Some more.
Yeah, the live stream was fun.
It was super fun. So thank you.
I like doing it. And so, I mean, I edit those conversations when I release them like quite a bit, because sometimes we're just, not that we're responding to people, but we're like reading what's going on.
Yeah.
So
it's compelling. But
yeah, it gets edited. But if you join actually live, then it's a different experience, and I think it's fun.
Yeah. So we'll do more of them.
We'll do more of those. Yeah. More for sure.
All right. So please rate and review, etc. Please support our cause.
Yeah. So that we don't have to go on Instagram. I don't think I can handle it.
Yeah, and
I don't have
to pay for daycare for myself. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's expensive. It's expensive to be a childless cat lady. Do you know like the hidden costs of it? I mean, I gotta drive myself to the airport, and it's just a whole bunch of stuff I have to do. You know,
you can train Hugo to do that. How about training your dog?
I gotta eat standing over the sink, and then that just is like, that takes up those kind of energy. Then I need to take a nap because I ate standing up. It's #exhausting. Yeah, it is. So anyway, all right. Well, I'm gonna go take a nap.
Oh, I would like to take one.
No, I'm not.
Actually,
I can't take naps.
Okay, I might.
I'm gonna go day drink, and then maybe go to an amusement park.
Meghan,
okay. That's what we do.
All right.
Okay. All right,
everyone.
Bye.